Before we begin, 3 messages. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Here's a riddle. How do you build native cross-platform mobile applications quickly without having to rewrite code and hire consultants at a huge cost? Titanium from Appcelerator. Called the easy button for mobile application development, it allows you to focus more on what's important, getting product out the door. Join the more than 1.5 million active developers who have created over 13,000 apps at www.appcelerator.com. So, you've taken some of the advice that has come from Untethered.tv guests, built an app, and now you're turning your attention to generating some hard-earned revenue. Then you should be looking at Pontiflex app leads. Some of your peers who are using app leads are earning CPMs 100 times the industry average. And if you need any other reasons to start, I'll give you 2 more. You can run sign-up ads from top brands, the ones that you recognize, and it won't take your precious users out of your app. Go to appleads.com, that's appleads.com to sign up. Hello everybody, welcome to Untethered.tv. I'm your host, Rob Woodbridge, and this is where we actually sit down and have great conversations, great casual conversations with mobile rock stars, those folks that are bending the laws of mobile in their favor, changing the way that we do business on a day-to-day activity, and also the people that are actually foreseeing or foretelling the future. And we've got just that person with us today, actually from, it's Victoria, BC, isn't it, Laura? So the opposite side of where I am, still in Canada, we're meeting with Laura Marriott, who is the CEO of a company called NeoMedia. And NeoMedia is in the 2D mobile barcode technology and infrastructure. They enable, their platform really enables quite a bit of the activity that we're seeing in the 2D barcode and QR code world. We're going to get into the company in a little bit as well, but there's a few things that you should know about Laura, and this is somebody who is very well versed in the mobile space, very, very well versed. Is kind of in the nascent time, the development time of the Mobile Marketing Association, ran the Mobile Marketing Association from 2005 to 2008, during a pretty amazing time in mobile in the formation of them. She was also named one of the industry's mobile women to watch in 2010 by Mobile Marketer. She's a top 50 U.S. executive, named one of the top 50 U.S. executives by Mobile Entertainment, and top 10 women in wireless by Fierce Markets. And it's really a great pleasure to have Laura with us to talk a little bit about the formative years of the Mobile Marketing Association, also the transition that she's gone through into NeoMedia, and why 2D barcodes. And then we're going to start talking about some of the best practices and reasons why you should be using this. And even, if we got some time, some examples of some of the great companies out there using this incredible technology to extend their brand into the mobile space. Laura, thanks for coming on, telling your story.
Hey, Rob. Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, and good morning.
Yes. I love the fact, Victoria, beautiful place. One of the, tiny pieces of heaven inside of Canada here. Not really part of Vancouver, but very much it's an ocean colony almost, isn't it?
A British colony, an ocean colony. Yes, absolutely. It's. I feel very fortunate to be able to work here in Victoria out of my home, and it's been very positive so far. Yeah.
Well, let's talk first about NeoMedia, because this is the company that you're running right now, and in the 2D barcode space, which I think that certainly what mobile has done is revitalized this industry, or brought it to the forefront, because we're starting to see QR codes now appear on store windows and on advertising and banner ads and display ads and even huge billboards in Times Square. So let's talk about NeoMedia. Go deep into it. What is NeoMedia?
Yeah, a great question. NeoMedia is one of the market leaders or global market leader in the 2D mobile barcode space. So NeoMedia has been around formulating intellectual property since the mid 1990s for mobile barcodes. What's great about that is that we've managed to put a very significant IP portfolio around mobile barcodes, mobile search, as well as a number of other patent families. And so we've really been a pioneer in this space. And so NeoMedia not only has a significant IP portfolio, but then we also have our own mobile barcode reader, so the reader that's installed on the consumer's device for barcode scanning. We do our own barcode management and infrastructure, so the creation, resolution, and management of the 2D codes. And then we also have a line of hardware as well that does ticketing and couponing type solutions. So truly, we are the only, or one of the only parties in the barcode space that are able to do a true end-to-end solution. Headquartered in Atlanta, offices in Germany, and just a really great company to be a part of.
So how long has NeoMedia been around for? Pioneers in the space?
Well, yeah, I mean, they originally incorporated, I think, in 1989, but didn't start in another whole line of business.
Yeah.
NeoMedia Technologies has been in its current form since the mid 1990s. The early 2000s, I think, is when you started to see significant activity around barcodes. We also bought a company called Gavatech that was the hardware company that did the scanners in Europe in the early 2003, I believe. So a long history.
So obviously, with a vision that 2D barcodes or whatever came next was going to be were things. It was going to stay here for a while. This isn't a fleeting industry.
No, for sure, for sure. I mean, we're seeing barcodes used not only on consumer applications, and that's what we're starting to see, significant adoption around with QR codes affiliated with political candidates, and as we were talking about on coffee cups.
Yeah.
But I think it's been around for a much longer period of time in the enterprise applications. So a QR code or a Aztec code, which is just another form of 2D code, to do things like train ticketing, plane tickets, coupons at POS or from a smart mobile terminal, for example, where you can do that redemption. Those types of applications have been around much longer than the marketing and advertising initiatives that we see today.
Yeah, it's kind of like the workhorse, right? You take them for granted in the print space, where you've seen them forever, and then all of a sudden the marketers get their hands on them, and it's the second coming of marketing, right? It's like, oh my God, have you seen these? They're QR codes. Well, they're barcodes. No, they're QR codes, and they're going to change the world. And meanwhile, progressively, they've already been doing that quite consistently for probably the better part of the last 20 years, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure about 20 years, but you think about what the first generation was, and the first generation was UPC codes, right? Because mobile barcode scanners can scan a 1D, the UPC or product code, as well as a 2D. So they have certainly been around for a very, very long time. And the ability for a consumer to very easily interact with their product of choice, product or service of choice through their handheld device, I mean, this is revolutionary.
It's pretty remarkable. I do love the marketing spin. And there have been some great pilot projects that I saw in the mid 90s, really about even with up here in Canada, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA, that was looking at around the time that the mad cow scare was out. They were looking at how do they actually document from cattle to consumer that lifespan of the product. And they were looking at RFID tags, they were looking at 2D barcodes in order to be able to make sure that they could trace that product back to its origin. And I thought that, that's the first time I heard about it, that wow, this is a really interesting way of thinking of how to wrap data around every product that's available on the planet. It's pretty amazing to be able to do that.
Agree, and it is pretty amazing. So even it's that supply chain management thing, not a sexy application, but certainly it's key to industry.
Well, you took this role. How long have you been running the company now?
I stepped in October of last year.
October of last year, and But before that, one of your very high-profile jobs was running the Mobile Marketing Association, which is now under Michael Becker, kind of, I think the de facto resource for mobile and marketing and combining the two and best practices and all the white papers and conferences you can imagine. What was it like in 2005 being involved in that space? Running an organization that was just accelerating at the time.
Yeah, it was a big risk when I first stepped into the role. I was a little worried about, was this really going to take off the way we all thought it was? But I actually became involved in the MMA in December of '04 as a board member. I was part of, I think, Company 23, joining the MMA board. I was at a company called Intrado. And it was just so exciting. I mean, the passion that core group of board members, and friends with all of them still today, but the passion that group of individuals had for mobile, what the mobile channel could do for brands and agencies was just infectious. I mean, it was just so exciting. And so when I had the opportunity to come and be, full-time staff member #1 in July of 2005, we only had 40 member companies at that time. How can you turn that down? I mean, we just believed in the power of what this mobile device could do for you. And, being a bit of a geek at heart, I just couldn't say no. And so to be there when it was a fledgling channel for marketing and advertising purposes, and just working with just an incredible group of industry leaders to really develop this, I mean, I feel very lucky indeed. A lot of work for sure, but to be able to put those first set of best practices in place, to launch the MMA Mobile Marketing Forum, to write the white papers that really got brands thinking about it. I remember one of the largest brands in the world. I met the head of mobile, or he wasn't even the head of mobile at that time. He was a part of the interactive team, and he put up his hand at the conference and he said, "I've heard a lot about mobile, but I'm not even sure what it is or how to do anything about it." Well, now they're one of the worldwide leaders in terms of mobile strategy. So it's amazing how far we've come, and I think that was 2007.
Yeah.
So from 2007 to 2011, just leaps and bounds ahead of where we were.
I mean, when you start to think about mobile over the last 5 or 6 years, and really specifically, probably over the last 3 years, since everybody says, I say, what was the definitive moment for you in mobile? Whether you're a developer, or a marketer, or a consultant, or an author, or just somebody who is looking at it for your company, everybody points to the iPhone launch, right? Which was that kind of that moment where everybody said, "Oh, okay, I get this now." And then the second biggest moment was when the App Store launched as well, and they started to see the combination of mobile devices and mobile software really enabling organizations. But what we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years, it looks like a meteoric acceleration of mobile compared to things like the PC era that took a number of years, like took 15 or 20 years to get penetration. Mobile, it just seems like we closed our eyes one night, woke up the next morning, and everybody, 5 billion people on the planet are carrying these devices now. Is that what it feels like for you?
Yeah, it does feel that fast. I mean, you look at, 1.6 billion users worldwide are using the internet and 5 billion using mobile. And I think they say it took, I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but 20 years to get to the first billion mobile subscribers. Yeah. It took less than 6 months to get to the 5th billion. So, I mean, we're just seeing phenomenal growth. And so it truly is happening overnight. But I even look at, you're talking about the iPhone and the App Store. Well, before that, SMS really revitalized what you could do through the mobile device. And even though SMS was, limited to 160 or 140 characters, it still was a powerful way for the brand to interact with the consumer, anytime, anywhere. It was, that was a game changer with the American Idol text voting. I mean, some big events.
Well, I love looking back at this and thinking, what was I doing in 2005 in the mobile space? And I'm very fortunate to have been involved in it, not as deeply as obviously as you in formulating these strategies. But you said it was a risk when you thought about this in 2005. When did you realize that this was no longer a risk? Was it? It wasn't the fact that you got, you were employee number one, but When was that where you looked around and said, "Oh my God, this is bigger than any of us ever thought"?
I think it was pretty fast, actually. So I joined in July, and I think by September we were well over 100 members. So just focusing on it and starting to grow it. And then in 2006, we had chapters, I think, in four or five different countries. I mean, it just skyrocketed. So by putting focused effort at something and really being committed to it, we were able collectively, and I say we because it really was not only me, but the entire board of directors and then the expanding member base, because they really believed in what we were doing.
What an amazing time to be a part of it, just simply to formulate what you guys were formulating at that time.
Absolutely.
So there must have been something about NeoMedia or the 2D barcode space that really must have been appealing, because when you kind of poke your head up after 3 years of running the MMA and being exposed to every large and small brand in the world, pretty much, that is building in the mobile space, you chose this path, 2D barcodes. And what was it that you saw that you thought, oh, okay, this, I can absolutely take this challenge on because the opportunity is so big?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, NeoMedia was the first company that I publicly announced my board involvement in January of 2009. So I've been a board director since '09.
Yep.
And what I found interesting about what they're doing is not only do they own the intellectual property, so that's important, but I felt that barcodes was a way to interact with the consumer in an easy to understand means that didn't require that they understand complicated technology. So it appealed to any demographic group, whether young or old, and it not only can connect you to the marketing and advertising programs, the entertainment, the fun, but it allowed you to do the productivity type applications, the couponing, the ticketing, the enterprise apps. It's just a really nice, easy to use medium, and so that's why I thought barcodes was definitely where I wanted to focus my initial efforts.
So it's like when people talk about SMS, and they think about this technology in decline, and I listen and read and watch Tomi Ahonen, who talks about SMS as the the backbone of mobile, because it enables the 5 billion devices that are out there, because not all of them are smartphones, as much as we'd love to think that. The majority aren't. And so when you start to think about SMS as that gateway, I think about QR codes as the same way. It's like SMS, everybody can understand how to do this. QR codes, there's a little bit of education, but once you do it once, you understand the impact or the simplicity of it. Does that kind of summarize it up? It's kind of like the SMS of the SMS equivalent for information.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. I mean, it's all you need is a camera on your phone and access to the wireless internet, and that's it.
Pretty incredible, and that pretty much enables every phone that's out there today, and if not today, in the next little while. So you started in 2010, and when you start to think about not the impact, but what you've seen in 2D barcode, are we still at the beginning of this from a mass consumption standpoint, or are we in the middle of that acceleration, the hockey stick curve of usage right now?
Always the hockey stick curve of utilization.
Yeah.
But I think it's absolutely true here. So I think we started to see a lot of brands dabbling over the last couple of years in barcodes, and we were hampered by the lack of reader on the phone,
right?
And all the network speeds and everything that's inherent to any mobile service. But we've really started to see brands of all sizes adopting. So we're seeing 2D codes, whether it's QR or data matrix, in the mainstream. We're seeing operators deploy QR codes as an element of their enterprise sales strategy. So I mean, these are real game changers. I always say that we need a big viral event in order to push barcodes to the next stage, whether that's helping get the scanners in the hands of consumers, or a big brand like a Facebook or a Google picking these up and really driving them forward. But it's definitely, I would say we're on the early part of the hockey stick, but there's still a lot of brands who are yet to adopt.
When I talk, I work with a lot of companies who are interested in bringing mobile into their company, or extending their brand through mobile. And we always talk about QR codes or 2D codes, well, most of it is QR codes for this purpose. And I like the fact that it's so simple to get it set up. And people look at me and say, "Well, Rob, how can you make a living working with companies and just recommending QR codes when you can go and get them for free?" How much, which is true, but how much of it is not in the enabling, but in the what's behind it? You know what I mean? How much strategy goes into the QR codes? You can make them, but I mean, what about that strategy behind it? How important is that?
Yeah, it's extremely important, and probably more important than anything else. And I actually just wrote an article on fee versus free, because that is a big issue in our industry that ran in Mobile Marketer last week. But it's, a brand cannot simply say as an afterthought, "Hey, let's plug a barcode onto this ad and let's see how it flies," or "Let's put a barcode on this at shelf tag and see what happens." It needs to be integrated and planned into the overall campaign and the mobile part of the campaign. So making sure that the brand has an integrated strategy from the time the consumer first looks at whatever their initiative is through to after the scan and what they're going to see after the scan is all important in a brand planning their strategy. When we talk about fee versus free, yes, you can go and generate a free barcode from the internet. But there's a lot of benefits to doing a fee-based approach or an indirect approach, which NeoMedia deploys, because we, trying to stay away from the technology so we don't bog this interview down with all the tech parts, we embed an index in the code which allows you to change the URL at any time. So you wouldn't need to reprint a campaign or reprint the barcodes. You could just change the URL redirect on the back end. There's lots of analytics and reporting that we have available through our system that you can't get access to through the free systems, for example. So free is definitely worthy of consideration if you're new to barcodes, if you're looking to do small-scale trials. It's definitely worth considering, but a fee-based approach has far more benefits and value. It's, as I say, a matter of you get what you pay for.
Oftentimes. I say that every time when somebody comes on and does an episode with me on Untether. We're using a free service called Skype, and ultimately you get what you pay for if we get disconnected. The video comes out for free for viewers. So again, they get what they get for free. I'd be more than willing for them to pay me. That's fine. The question then is that, so once you deploy something like a QR code or a 2D code, one of the huge benefits of mobile is the fact that this is measurable. It's more measurable than anything else that you've ever deployed in advertising or marketing or in product knowledge or anything like that. It allows you to carry on that conversation much longer. Do companies realize that when you go and talk to them? Is that what you guys offer at NeoMedia is that ability to really understand how people are using the product, where they're using it, and what information they're. I mean, do you ever get people bristling about how important is that information?
I don't think I've never encountered that scenario where they question the importance of the data. I think they don't believe that that's really possible. So putting a unique code, for example, on every billboard in the city of New York and being able to measure how many consumers are interacting with every unique billboard, they just can't wrap their heads around that. Like, really? You can really get that kind of information about where we're advertising? And I think that is extremely powerful, scary to some of the, out-of-home companies that are selling that space. Yeah. But I think it's, they're beginning to understand the power. But with that comes some concerns. Well, what about consumer privacy? And do I need to be concerned about my consumer interacting and who's going to see that data? The nice thing about barcodes is it's 100% consumer opt-in. There is no consumer push. The consumer actually pulls every time they scan. The consumer says, "Hey, I want to interact with that brand, and hey, give me the information that I'm looking for." So it's nice that it's a consumer-initiated response. And so you also, in that circumstance, you know that the consumer is interested in interacting with your brand and interacting with your brand for the offer that you're communicating to them, which is also nice.
I mean, it's very nice because because it is opt-in. I love that. I love that feature of this is that it is opt-in. Nobody's forcing you to do it. You're not going to get spam stuff that you weren't interested in to begin with, unlike email lists or any other nefarious activities that happen online, or even SMS. Right. The worst thing you can do is send me an unsolicited SMS. But what about numbers? When you start to talk about numbers, do you have to adjust expectations? Because you just said it so well. So out of home stuff, when you got a big billboard in the middle of Times Square, you've been sold on foot traffic, right? And that's the biggest thing. Is this is the best location. It's millions of eyeballs a day. But then when you bring it down to something like a QR code or some kind of like a quick response or a barcode or anything, the numbers are going to be drastically smaller than what was promised on that billboard. So if you've got a billboard that gets a million eyeballs a day, views a day, but only 10 people check in, does that create a disconnect of concern for the client?
Well, it's tough to just have a blanket response because it all depends on how they're presenting the offer. So because the entire consumer population doesn't understand what a QR code is, for example, we say in these early days, put beside the code, how to scan, well, what it is, how to scan it, and what value it's going to return for the consumer. Then we can, almost guarantee you're going to get higher response rates. Right. If you just put a code up there with no information about what the code is or even where to get the reader to scan it, you're not going to get the same level of response. And we see a lot of brands, it's about adding it as the afterthought, like let's just throw it on the bottom of the billboard and see what happens. Well, you're going to have mixed results if you do that. You need to make sure that you plan your QR or your 2D code integration as much as you would any other campaign element.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most important things here is that education piece, obviously. And if people aren't using it, there's two examples that I always thought that kind of, shone a light onto this. Is that one is in Toronto, the TTC, which is the the bus service and the GO trains and the subway had a huge poster with a QR code that had, it was a big QR code and had the instructions that said, okay, go here on in the App Store or on your browser to download this application, which was a QR code scanning application. Then it said, okay, launch it, point it at the QR code here, and it's going to take you to the mobile m.ttc.ca. Which is a terrible use of this. It's like, no, you didn't get it. Nice try, but you didn't get it. And these were plastered all over the terminals and the bus shelters and the subway. Fail. Then I saw one which was done in the States, which was done by a law firm at a bus terminal that said the big barcodes, beautifully designed barcodes, QR codes, and it said scan this and you'll get a PDF version of Moby Dick for your bus ride. And I thought, okay, very interesting, right? And the implications of that are, you'll scan it and as a show of interest, their response rate was exceptional, right? So you start to think about those two things, and it becomes the strategy behind it that is going to guarantee those numbers aren't a dismal failure.
Yep, right? Exactly right. You nailed it. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that you've written about, and certainly NeoMedia is known for, is kind of coming out with, you have written quite a few white papers around the technology, certainly around best practice guides and those kind of things. Is that something that can be summarized in a few points around, some of the things that you guys are seeing are some of the best practices for use of QR or 2D codes?
Yeah, it can certainly be summarized. I mean, there's 11 points that we have in it that a brand should consider, but it's things like planning ahead, making sure you've integrated the code in a place that makes it easy to scan, communicate what we were just saying, communicate what the code is, how to scan it, and what value it's going to provide. It's about design and placement, ensuring this consistency and that a brand or that a consumer can understand that what you're putting in front of them. These are some of the simple rules that we have that really help make a positive experience not only for the consumer, but a consistent and a successful experience for the brand. So on our website, we have our our consumer best practices. That would be the MMA. We have our mobile barcode best practices that really sketch out for a brand owner or agency how to go about deploying a mobile barcode campaign. And, you know, we have been spending a lot of time on white papers and best practices within NeoMedia, given my experience within the MMA and the real need to do this education and evangelization to the industry around this opportunity. It'll only help grow the space for all of us.
So when you start to look at Laura, I just lost your video for some reason.
Oh, really? Oh.
Perfect.
Is it back?
Yep.
Oh.
Perfect.
Okay.
So
I think someone else was calling in, so I think it just hiccuped for a second.
That's the thing with this thing. It's Skype. It's free, isn't it?
Exactly.
When you start to look at the way companies are using this today, obviously there's a lot of wayfinding going on right now, and I've given you an example, obviously my examples of what not to do, and maybe a little bit of what to do around QR codes or 2D codes. Is there anything that you've seen out there that is really emblematic, or symbolizes the potential for QR or 2D codes?
You mean in terms of a really great campaign?
Yeah, something that you just look at and you say, oh, you could never have done that without the 2D code. You could never have engaged with that many people. You could never have tracked or been able to see the statistics or the analytics behind it. Something that really you look at and said, oh, that's the perfect example. I'm asking for a lot here, I know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, have I seen the perfect example? I have seen lots of really successful implementations. I think what Best Buy is doing around 2D codes is fabulous. I think that one of our campaigns that we did with the Austrian Postal Service, hugely creative, amazing response rates, what they did with the Advent calendar and putting a QR code behind every window of an Advent calendar and delivering different offers with every window opening. These are just completely innovative and things we wouldn't have thought of. 2D is doing a great job for us in terms of revitalizing traditional media, so direct mail, bringing direct mail to life when that we thought was a dead media.
Sure.
Potentially, same thing in newspapers, helping the advertisers direct, qualified traffic to their sites. These are, simple implementations, but they're just so easy and, thoughtful that they are having great success for the brand. So no big gotcha. I think it's just all of the little campaigns along the way have really helped make this a very viable mobile media element. So sorry, Rob. No,
perfect one. Well, that's good, because then that should inspire people to get out there and start to test these things that are going to push their business. We always talk about mobile first, and with 2D codes, this is one of those things, a perfect opportunity to suspend how you've been doing it and to look at it from a mobile first perspective without risking quite a lot, to be able to change your business model to that mobile first mentality. It's really a great opportunity here for people to come up with that ideal way of using these codes. I want to shift the focus just for the last few minutes here with you around the impact of this industry, because and I don't think so much on the mobile side, but from a traditional consumer or a traditional retailer perspective and a traditional consumer perspective, QR codes and the internet, that perfect combination, has the potential, we've already seen it start, but has the potential really to disrupt and re-empower the consumer around pricing and about what they're willing to pay and about how retail organizations actually function, because the power is now in my hands. And you mentioned Best Buy, but if I was a bricks and mortar retailer and I was spending a lot of money on advertising, drawing people into my shop, and all they were doing were walking in there and using something like Shop Savvy or your application or anybody else's application to go and scan a barcode or a QR code, find the best price on Amazon, and then leave and buy it from them, that would be scaring me to no end today. because I mean, what are the long-term implications of that?
Yeah, well, power in the hands of the consumer, right? I mean,
Yes.
that is definitely definitely a concern and should be a concern for the retailers. You know, we're talking with some retailers internationally that want to create their own applications that do comparative shopping, where they would embed their own scanner
Yep.
into their application that actually helps the consumer find the best deal within their stores or find the inventory within their stores. And then they would add either additional services, price matching, or something that delivers the same experience to the consumer without the consumer leaving their venue. Retailers are being very proactive about being on top of their strategies to deliver value to the consumer when in their stores. And I think that we're going to see a lot of retail-specific apps being deployed that either integrate a mobile barcode scanner or that potentially even block the ability to access others' comparative shopping apps when in store.
Wow. Well, I mean, I can, from a consumer standpoint, I love it. I mean, no longer am I kind of tied to a brand, a retail brand, when I can find that product or an equivalent product around the corner or online for cheaper. From a consumer standpoint, man, this is beautiful. For the first time now, I'm going to pay almost pure value for the product and no markup, because you have that say.
Right.
But really from that retailer, my views on this, and maybe they're a little bit different from yours, and I hope so, is that this is actually in the long run going to have an impact on price, on the way that product is priced, and the way that companies mark that product up, and it's going to have an impact on consumer expectations for price, as well as how obviously profitability of companies, like that's the impact that we're talking about here, and we've just started to see this. Is that do you believe in that as well?
I do believe in that, absolutely. I mean, it's changing. Look at how many people shop online. I mean, I don't think I've been into a shopping mall in a very long time because I do it all online. And the other great thing is during, Memorial Day sales, Memorial Day sales or upcoming Independence Day sales, we can actually get access to the same sales without leaving our house. So why go battle traffic? I mean, it's whether it's making us more efficient or, pick your verb, but it's certainly creating better opportunities for the consumer.
Well, all I see is great opportunity for either incumbents to, as you said, integrate this into what they're doing. I love what Best Buy's doing, and they're fully embracing this technology and using it to their best, the best of their capabilities. And then I look at what say Barnes and Noble or Borders are doing, Chapters here in Canada. They're ignoring it. They're just kind of throwing their hands over their eyes and saying, well, if it's not impacting us. But every time I walk into a Chapters or a bookstore and I see plush toys and candles, I know that it's having an impact on their bottom line. Something's not right as they move away from their core and maybe focusing on the wrong areas. So if you were going to give out 3 pieces of advice, or 1 piece or 2 pieces of advice for anybody out there who wants to jump into this space, even some of the retailers that are not doing this right now, or some of the consumers who are interested in playing in this, what would that be? Do you have like a 1 or 2 tips that you would give to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, give us a call.
Perfect.
No,
That's
I
it.
think
I only need 1.
I think that's very important. Call a reputable vendor in the space. There are a lot of case studies out there. You can learn from the benefits, or you can learn from what companies have done well and what they haven't. There is a lot of case studies out there. So take the time and understand how to effectively deploy a campaign. And it's really call a reputable vendor, and we're happy to help.
I see. I like that. Very succinct answer. Very, very succinct. When you talk about my last question here, Laura, is when you talk about how does this industry evolve? Because right now QR and barcodes seem to be dominant, and Microsoft's got their own equivalent to QR codes, and and when you look at what it's being used for today, it's not incorporating things like payment or information transferring from person to person, all those kind of things. Do you see is there a clear path for you guys here of where this industry is going to end up?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, I know so, but there are a couple of things that we're doing as an industry which I think have to happen in order to get, this mass adoption. So one is we've got organizations like GS1 playing a very key role in terms of defining standards. And not only are they defining standards around mobile barcodes, but they're also defining, ensuring the accuracy of the product data. Because the last thing we want to happen is a consumer go and scan a code and get nothing back.
Right.
It's got to be a positive experience for the consumer every time. So organizations like GS1, like the Open Mobile Alliance, OMA, are doing great things there. You've also got, a real need for the barcode scanning companies out there, like ourselves, to get those readers pre-installed on the handsets. So, we have relationships with Samsung in Italy. We have a relationship with Sony Ericsson globally, and getting that reader into the hands or into the device so that when a consumer launches a device, they're able to have that scanner ready and able to go, or even integrated into the camera so that there's no download required, certainly removes a barrier to entry for the consumer. So that certainly helps all in the equation, get this technology moving more quickly.
So is this a year out, 2 years out before you start to see this kind of bigger, I know we're at the very early stages of that hockey stick. I mean, we're in the Stanley Cup final, so we might as well talk about it. But the hockey stick curve. I mean, what is it? It's going to move much faster once it accelerates, isn't it? Yeah. Of course it is. It's going to move much faster once it accelerates. Once
we're seeing it now, though, Rob. We're seeing it now. It's already accelerating faster than I think. We've all been waiting for it for years, but it's warp speed at the moment.
Perfect. Well, I mean, I love that because I certainly think that what we're talking about here, the ideas that I've started to see around the industry, around 2D codes, is a lot of innovation happening. And I think that once you start to kind of figure out how to tag whatever it is that you're doing, you'll get the history. And I think that maybe I'll ask you this. The last question, Laura, is what industries do you think are going to be impacted the most by the use of QR codes? We talked about retail because I know retail is going to be massive. Is there anything else that you see? Any other industries that you're looking that are lining up very effectively for the use of these codes?
Yeah, consumer electronics, quick service restaurant, consumer packaged goods generally, beverage, financial services, travel. I mean, we're seeing the early adopter verticals. We're seeing them enter the QR code space as well.
Yeah, I love that. Think about scanning your electronic goods or any of your goods, and having an instant digital record for insurance purposes. So you start to think about all those things, and yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that there is an industry that this won't touch. And do you think that there's any reason why companies shouldn't be using this today? Like dry cleaners, should they be using this? Where's that cutoff point for small or medium-sized companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's truly understanding who your target demographic is and how they're using mobile, because it's easier to get companies to integrate QR codes, or let's just say 2D codes generally, if they already have a mobile strategy. It's a bit more of a reach if a company hasn't even started to look at mobile, because It's not only integrating that code, it's what happens after the scan, and it's what happens after the scan, and ensuring that's also a positive experience for the consumer that the dry cleaner also needs to consider. So, if the dry cleaner is open to offering, exclusive coupons or discounts, then yes, absolutely, they should do it. But start in mobile first.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Well, Laura, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of diving deeper into what this industry is. Certainly, I don't think that there's anybody better that can speak about what's going on in the 2D space. I don't think there's anybody that could better speak about the mobile industry based on your experience as well. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with the Untether.tv crowd. Where can they find more information about you, about this, about NeoMedia?
Yeah, well, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me this morning. www.neom.com is where you can get access to lots of white papers, articles, and best practices around how to integrate a mobile 2D program. You can reach me on my email at lmarriott@neom.com as well.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Folks, I've been speaking with Laura Marriott, who is the CEO of NeoMedia. And you can find them, as she said, at Neom, Neom.com. Go and check them out. There's a bunch of great white papers that they have, as well as some best practices around 2D barcodes and QR codes. Go and download that information and start implementing. This isn't, this is very easy to test. This is very easy to start with. But once you get going, you should definitely start to consult with some folks who actually know how to measure this and implement for you, so that it's not painful the second time around. It could be painful the first time around, but the second time will be a breeze for you guys. So go check out NeoMedia, Neom.com. I want to thank Laura for coming on. I want to thank you guys who are still watching and listening to this, as always. Really appreciate you guys doing that, and love to hear some feedback from you guys at untether@gmail.com. If you have a question for Laura, funnel it to me. I'll make sure she gets it. And if you have any questions for me, I'll answer every single one that you throw my way. Thank you guys so much for being here day after day. Laura, enjoy the rest of your day. This has been another episode of Untether.tv. See you next time.